truck career.
Where are we at?
Yeah. A big truck career. Don't know power. Yeah.
What our society values and gender roles. I really don't understand our society when it comes to this stuff.
Who's controlling the images that we see in the media?
How people learn from what is popular around them, and television in particular. And when we talk to our students and our students come to our classes, they often talk about what they've learned from television. It's not always accurate information, but they have learned it. It's become part of their worldview, the way they've made meaning from their lives. So we need to be able to pay attention to that.
When I was growing up, I was a huge Saved by the Bell fan, and Melrose Place, and all of those shows I was obsessed with. But now I'm definitely a big Gossip Girl fan.
Advertising does sell products, of course, but it also sells a great deal more than products. It sells values, it sells images, it sells concepts of love and sexuality, of romance, of success, and perhaps most important, of normalcy. To a great extent, advertising tells us who we are and who we should be. The first thing the advertisers do is surround us with the image of ideal female beauty. So we all learn how important it is for a woman to be beautiful and exactly what it takes. Women learn from a very early age that we must spend enormous amounts of time, energy, and above all, money, striving to achieve this ideal and feeling ashamed and guilty when we fail. And failure is inevitable because the ideal is based on absolute flawlessness. She never has any lines or wrinkles. She certainly has no scars or blemishes. Indeed, she has no pores.
How women have learned from popular culture.
I call it the cowboy mentality, that men ride to the rescue, men were capable of certain things physically and intellectually, and that when there's something that needs to be solved, it's more likely a man is going to do it. It'll be a surprise if a woman does it.
Advertising has increased from a $20 billion a year to a $180 billion a year industry. The average American is exposed to over 3,000 ads every single day and will spend 3 years of his or her life watching television commercials, just the commercials. The ads, as you know, are everywhere. They're on radio, television, newspapers, magazines, billboards, bumper stickers. Here, one company brags about its ability to put advertising in your face all over the place.
I loved Saved by the Bell before school. I loved Boy Meets World and all of the Nickelodeon cartoons.
Yes, yes.
But then, you move into I was a huge fan of the OC.
That there are more and more images of women athletes that bear alarming resemblances to soft pornography.
Is this the kind of image that we want young girls who are interested in sport to aspire to? Do we want them to think that in order to be respected as an athlete, they have to strip?
The likelihood of having sex for the first time was double among kids who saw the very most sex on TV compared to those who saw the very least. And again, to control for prior experience, we looked only at kids who were virgins the first time that we interviewed them.
I think it's pretty clear that if you're a female athlete and you want corporate sponsorship, you'd better project a wholesome image. And part of that wholesomeness is the assumption that you are not lesbian, that you are heterosexual. So you'll have a disproportionate number of images of women athletes with children, with boyfriends, with husbands, to clearly mark themselves as heterosexual.
But fewer than 1 in 20 shows portray responsible sexual behavior. So somebody using a condom, or even a condom sitting near a bedside, or a couple discussing whether they should have sex or wait, or show negative outcomes, somebody having an STI or experiencing an unplanned pregnancy.
Full House House. I loved Full House. I loved, oh my God, TGI Friday. Urkel was going to be my, Stefan Urkel, are you serious? That was going to be my husband. I don't think that he knew that, but he was.
And women's bodies are still, in fact, perhaps more than ever, turned into objects, into things. And of course, this has very serious consequences. For one thing, it creates a climate in which there's widespread and increasing violence against women. Here she's become the bottle of alcohol with a label branded on her stomach. Now, I'm not at all saying that an ad like this directly causes violence. It's not that simple. But it is part of a cultural climate in which women are seen as things, as objects. And certainly turning a human being into a thing is almost always the first step toward justifying violence against that person.
My obsession with Dexter and Skins.
I'm not saying 227 because I heard Glenn say it. I'm saying it because I watched it with my grandmother every single weekend, and it came on after Golden Girls, and that was the other one that I watched. Cosby Show, Family Ties, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, but they were like heartwarming, and I was allowed to watch them.
And we began looking at these images, and I started to see a pattern in the pictures, a kind of statement about what it means to be a woman in this culture. But I became very interested in the whole subject of beauty and of the image, of how much power it gives young women, but how short-lived and unfulfilling it ultimately is. Particularly women of color, who are often literally shown as animals, dressed in leopard skins, in animal prints. Over and over again, the real message is not fully human.
Women are significantly underrepresented. Women are significantly underrepresented. Women are significantly underrepresented.
Women's bodies continue to be dismembered in advertising. Over and over again, just one part of the body is used to sell products, which is, of course, the most dehumanizing thing you can do to someone. Not only is she a thing, but just one part of that thing is focused on.
Inviting women in and acknowledging that women are also athletic and muscular and strong is a real challenge to that cultural norm that we live in.
To ask me why I'm a feminist on YouTube is almost the equivalent to me of asking me why I'm a black person on YouTube or why I'm a woman. I'm a feminist on YouTube for the same reason that I'm a feminist anywhere else. It's not a concept or an ideology or something that can be separated from any actions or anything that I take part in.
Absolutely a feminist. And I think a lot of people who watch Dollhouse are going to be challenged by that because it's a very touchy show. It's going to deal with some ugly issues. But yes, I am absolutely a feminist. I was raised by a feminist. More than one, in fact, and you know, I find people who find that term even necessary to use both creepy and incomprehensible.
You always cast women in strong roles that always give the guys a run for their money. Would you consider yourself a feminist?
I would consider myself absolutely a feminist.
Feminism, political, economic, or social equality for women.
For men, purely as sexual objects. Now that landscape has changed somewhat with the tremendous growth of girls and women's sports. Everybody has the opportunity to see strong, powerful, physically competent, competitive women. And I think that really challenges that simple gender dichotomy that we used to take so much for granted.
I don't think a real feminist can be anything but a feminist no matter where they are.
I don't consider myself a feminist, like a hardcore feminist. Like I don't go to rallies or listen to punk or let my armpit hair grow long.
Think of more radical people, but when you really define the word, it's just about being equal to men in general.
Equal rights for women.
Honestly, I think of man haters, you know, equal rights, but it's someone that's angry.
Overly strong women, overly opinionated women. I guess that has a negative connotation for me.
For you?
Nagging.
And I just don't think it's a good idea to talk about feminism on a first date. Not if I want a second date.
I like equal opportunity, so if that makes me a feminist, yeah.
I'm used to hearing about feminists being as like women who hate men and want to be lesbians. That's how I got it when I first heard it.
I can't believe that, 20, 30 years after the fact, we still have people being like, oh yeah, well, like, I walk like a feminist and I talk like a feminist and I act like a feminist, but I'm not a feminist. The way you dress is a feminist statement. Not shaving is a political statement, but that doesn't mean you can't also wear a short skirt and heels.
Yes, absolutely. I always have considered myself a feminist, and for the life of me, I cannot understand why women, if you're breathing, why aren't you a feminist?
In high school, when I read Gloria Steinem's book, it changed my life.
Being a feminist to me means I'm connected to every woman on the planet.
Acknowledging you're a feminist is an act of gratitude for the people who went before you and fought for the rights that you're now enjoying.
All right, guys, we've been in charge for like 10,000 years, and you can pretty much see the job we've done.
I remember kind of making it up. For me, I hadn't heard it before. When I was finishing my first book, The Beauty Myth, and it was kind of an early exercise in if you build it, they will come thinking, because at the time I wrote The Beauty Myth, everyone was saying feminism is dead, no one's interested, it's over. And in fact, there was almost no activity on the part of young women especially. And second wave feminists were, their mom's age. So I said at the end of the book, there's going to be this third wave of feminism, and I sort of was hoping, well, if I say it, maybe someone will join up, And of course, other people like Rebecca Walker were also using the phrase at about the same time.
There is transformational learning from watching television.
It's you and me, Ponytail.
Why do they always run?
I don't think it really needs to have a rigorous definition. I've never been one who's a fan of labels. To me, it just means women who are younger, substantially younger than second wave feminists. Does that generation of third and probably now fourth wave feminists have a different style in their feminism? I think there's some differences, and they're good differences. I think third wave feminism tends to be much more pluralistic about sexuality and personal expression and, fashion choices, and much less dogmatic, which I think is great. I think third wave feminism tends to be more alert than some second wave feminists were to issues of class and race. I think third wave feminists are more engaged, tend to be more engaged with being willing to use power, like to use the media or to use the electoral process, or to use consumer practices for a good outcome, which is great. Like second wave feminism tended to be kind of puritanical. Like we can only be really good if we don't touch the marketplace, we don't touch the media, we don't touch, politics, as usual. But apart from that, what I love about being kind of superannuated, I love being kind of the dinosaurs and letting the young ones kind of carry the ball forward. What I love about the third wave and the fourth wave is that it's time for them to make their own mistakes, to create their own theories and, throw up their own leaders. And that's as it should be. That means that a movement is alive and vigorous.